Good evening. We are honored to have you here tonight for our Take Back the Night program here in Gonzales. I am your Mistress of Service, Janice Richards, and I'm with Iris Domestic Violence Center. At this time, we will have our prayer by Suzanne Hamilton, our CCR team member. And then we will have the presentation of colors and pledge by Santa Mont High School Junior ROTC, and East Ascension High School student will do our pledge. And the national anthem will be Dutchtown High School Band, Shelley Bell. Thank you.
Good evening. Please join me in prayer. Loving God, we gather here today to remember those who are affected by violence and abuse and for whom we are concerned. Alone, we can do nothing. With your guidance and blessing, we can move mountains. Open us to the problems in our neighborhood. Keep us constantly aware of the concerns of violence. Inspire each of us to know the urgency of your call to address the many needs that surround us. And give us the strength to respond to the task before us according to your will. Let us leave this gathering more concerned about issues of violence and abuse that surround us. We ask you for the strength to share our convictions, the compassion for the abused, the wisdom to plant seeds that encourage people to think and ponder these serious issues. Watch over with care those who are violated and those who strive to do your work. In your name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, we will have a welcome by Ascension Parish Sheriff Bobby Webbery, and then we will have a musical selection by St. Amant High School Choir, Miss Sarah Bray, Dutchtown High School Band. Afterwards, we will have the distinguished honor of having my boss, Mr. John J. Price, IRIS Executive Director, to come with you, a man of passion, concern, and genuine committed to the task of treating the ladies and gentlemen of domestic violence. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to think I ordered this weather for you. It almost feels like a real cold front's come through. It's 84 degrees right now. But if we were here last week, it'd be about 94 degrees. So this is not too bad. Another thing I wish I could take credit for is that I told that train to pass early this year. Because usually every year, right when we're in the middle of a beautiful song or a beautiful speech, that train comes by, so it came by a little early. You folks sitting on these trees over here, I can't help you. You got about 100 birds flying over your head right now. You are on your own. If you feel something wet, it might not be rain. Domestic violence. I wish this is a meeting. I wish this was a gathering we didn't have to have anymore. But year after year, here we are, talking about the same thing, feeling compassion for the victims and their families. We did something quite different in 2016 in the sheriff's office. We took our response to domestic violence to a whole new level, even to the point of having our deputies out there doing threat assessments on the side of the road or in a home with victims, something we've never done before and something a lot of departments are still not doing. When we take a Maryland model and a Canadian model and we put it together and we ask victims, tell me about what's going on, and we measure it, and our response is predicated on that assessment, on the threat level of that assessment. I've been doing this for 34 years. When I started patrolling in 1985, domestic violence was like your problem, not ours. Somebody go spend the night at somebody else's house, y'all cool off, we know you're going to be back together anyway. It's been a 180-degree change on how we're dealing with domestic violence, even up to the point of, like I said just a few years ago, us taking it to a whole new level. And although we still have to deal with victims every year in incidents of domestic violence, I will tell you my first two weeks as sheriff, and some of you will remember this, back in January when I even hate to call him a man, a young man drives from Livingston Parish after killing his girlfriend, her father, and her brother, drives right down here to Church Point Road and puts a gun in his mom and dad's face and kills them. That's the type of violence we have to see. But it is a little, maybe light at the end of the tunnel. I will tell you, because of the actions we've taken, because of the changes we have made, and because of the fact that we developed a domestic violence unit run by Ms. Pam Richardson, Lieutenant Joey Myers, and Rachel Cabot, a whole unit dedicated to just that. And when I say just that, that is very, very important. And having Pat Douglas as a hearing officer to take all those cases so very seriously. In 2018, I can tell you, our domestic violence incidents dropped 6.7%. And in 2019, our domestic violence incidents dropped almost 9%. So don't ever think you can't do anything about this. You can do things about it. You can make a difference. Reporting it makes a difference. Law enforcement taking it serious makes a difference. A hearing judge who hears it can make a difference. And we're starting to see it in our numbers, and I'm very, very grateful of that. Glad to see all of our police officers, all of our deputies out here, some of our command staff here, and I thank you for being here. I wish more would come. But if more came, maybe that means we have more victims. But when we have awareness, we would like people to come who's not here because they may know somebody that's been a victim of domestic violence, just to be here and support ours and support the cause of the advocacy of domestic violence. We all need to be very, very much aware of it. So again, thank you for being here. I know we have a wonderful program tonight. You will enjoy it, and I think there'll be a meal afterwards. You'll hear some great singing from the Sanama School. You'll hear great music from the band from Dutchtown, and you'll hear some great speeches tonight. So once again, I just wanted to come up, say hello, tell you we can make a difference, tell you we are making a difference, and just thank you one more time for being here. Have a great night.
Thank you, Sheriff Weber. Is it Weber or Weber? Okay, thank you. At this time, we'll have the music selection by Sanamont High School, and then we'll have our guest speaker, Mr. John Price.
Thank you for that rendition. I really love Ascension Parish. I wish I had moved here 25 years ago. I looked at a few houses in this area. But there was a flood that spring, and the house that I liked, I couldn't get to it. So I decided I'd live just on the other side. And I moved to the south part of the parish. But every time I come here, I'm reminded of what community is, and it reminds me of my growing up in a small town. And you can go anywhere you want in Baton Rouge, and I like Baton Rouge, but you're not going to find a venue like this anywhere. Beautiful waters, these trees, this wonderful amphitheater. It's a great place for events, and I like coming to Ascension Parish. And I thank you all for coming here tonight. This is the third year that I've been to Ascension Parish for Take Back the Night. I'm always impressed by the people that turn out. I'm always impressed by the elected officials and the support of the community, particularly the mayors, the sheriff, individuals who daily are out there in the public and who have supported the Irish Domestic Violence Center. My name is John Price, and I'm the executive director of that agency. It's a 501c nonprofit agency that's been in existence since 1981. Now, I don't know why everybody is here tonight. Some people maybe are victims of domestic abuse, know someone and are supporting that person. Some of you I know work for some of the government institutions, Sheriff's Department, the courts, the mental health units, the medical facilities. We have a great community in Ascension Parish that works with our agency to provide a response to domestic abuse. Regardless of the reason why you're here, maybe you're just the designated driver because your child is in the van or sang. Regardless of why you're here though, I hope you leave here tonight with some information that would do you some good, will do the community good, and maybe a challenge. My agency has been around for 38 years. We were formed in 1981 in Baton Rouge when the mayor at that time was he formed a commission to study the issues that women were facing in 1981. And the biggest issue that came out of that commission study was that we needed a place in Baton Rouge where women who were undergoing battering could find safety. And they opened up the Battered Women's Program in 1981 in East Baton Rouge. Since that time, in 38 years, we have expanded the services that we offer. We've expanded the area that we cover. Irish Domestic Violence Agency covers 7 parishes, both of the Felicianas, East and West, East Baton Rouge and West Baton Rouge, Point Capee, Iberville, and Ascension Parish here. So with our 21 employees, we cover that 7 parish geographical area. We were originally a shelter only. Now we have a 24-hour emergency crisis line where individuals who need assistance or information about domestic abuse can call and speak to a trained advocate who can answer their questions, provide them with referrals, or give them assistance. We provide a 24-hour safe house sanctuary. We have 22 rooms available for victims of domestic abuse and their dependent children. Those rooms are about 80% full most of the time. We have 21 employees who provide advocacy, support services, and referrals to victims of domestic abuse and family violence. Our name was changed from the Battered Women's Program to the Irish Domestic Violence Center. It's an appropriate name. The iris is a purple flower. It's native to Louisiana, and it's known for it being able to flourish under adverse conditions. And we believe it's appropriate because in our line of work, we work with victims of domestic abuse and try to get them to flourish under adverse conditions. It's a challenging job. We do not close. We are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's no closing down at 5 o'clock. We don't close down on the weekends. We don't close down on any holidays. Someone is always there to answer the phone. Someone is always there to provide support services. We're very busy at ours. In 2018, in our residential program, we housed a total of 484 individuals who were needing safe house sheltering because they were in danger of imminent harm. Of that amount, 227 were dependent children. We provided a total of 12,163 shelter nights during the calendar year of 2018. In addition to what we call our residential services, we also provided another 2,415 individuals with non-residential services. That's the support and advocacy that we provide them. We give them anything that we can, from helping them find employment, helping them find housing, giving them transportation. We provide free legal service to any abuse victim who is seeking to obtain a protective order against her abuser. We have 3 contract attorneys and 21 employees. Those 3 contract attorneys, along with our legal department, represent victims in every court in those 7 parishes in order to get protective orders. And we collaborate with Southeast Legal Services to provide additional services to ancillary services for divorce, custody, all the other elements that go along when somebody leaves an abusive relationship. We're busy because domestic abuse, intimate partner violence, family violence has reached epidemic proportions in this country and in this state. If you don't believe it, listen to these facts. 1 in 4 women will be victims of domestic violence at some point in their life. 1 in 4 women. If you're sitting on that row where there's 5 of you, 1 of you is going to have been a victim of domestic violence or may be a victim of domestic violence. That's very frightening. Every 9 seconds in the United States, a woman is beaten or assaulted by a current or an ex-significant other. Every 9 seconds. Domestic violence and the injuries that it causes is the leading cause of injury to women, more than car accidents, muggings, and rapes combined. Every day in the United States, 3 women are murdered by their husband or their boyfriend. All of these facts come to us from the FBI, the Department of Justice, the Center for Disease Controls. This is the data that has been compiled over 40 years. It's a significant problem in the country. But if you want to know how bad it really is, listen to this about our state. Every year there's a study that's done when men kill women. It talks about the rate at which men kill women throughout our country. For the 6th year in a row, Louisiana's rate has increased. We remain 2nd in the nation with the rate of women being killed by men, 2nd only to Alaska. And that's over the last 6 years. Our rate of women in Louisiana being killed by men is double the national average. So not only is it bad in the state, it's bad in the, not only is it bad in the country, it's bad in the state. Iris serves a 7-parish area. I just told you where they were. During 2018, we had a total of 16 individuals who were killed and lost their life to domestic abuse and family violence. As Sheriff Weber talked about, in January of 2018, Ascension Parish lost 2, the parents of an abuser who came back and killed them after he had killed his girlfriend, her father, and her brother. Strides are being made and improvements are being seen in some of the areas. And you're fortunate in Ascension Parish to have Sheriff Bobby Weber following Sheriff Jeff Wiley, because they have made the commitment to domestic abuse services, and they have done the things that are cutting edge and best practices throughout the country. But not all of our elected officials make that kind of commitment. I've talked about the primary victims, primarily women who are being abused by men. That's about 85% of all the cases that we see. But domestic violence and abuse does not discriminate. You can have domestic abuse between men and men, women and women, family violence. All of them are the same. It knows no special population. Men are affected, women are affected. Women of color, Caucasian women, women of different cultures. It does not respect your age, your race, your color, your creed, nothing. You can see it in every population. One population that has seen it grow, and which is now one of the most vulnerable populations that we have, are women 16 to 24 years of age. It's gone down to our children. And the domestic abuse that takes place in a family between a man and a woman, a husband and a wife, a person and their partner, that is witnessed by children, has a dramatic and significant negative impact on them. Men who witnessed abuse between their parents as a child are twice as likely to abuse when they become men than men who did not witness that. And women who witnessed it are more likely to become victims when they become women. 1 in 5 women, 1 in 5 teenage girls who have been in a relationship with a boyfriend has reported that threats of violence to them or threats of self-harm by the boyfriend would be the result if they were met with a breakup. In both of those cases, that's abuse. That's abuse. Because it's not only the physical abuse, it's the emotional abuse. It's the trauma. It's the stress. It's living with the day-to-day threats of violence or acts of violence. Now, I don't have a lot of time to go into why or how or talk to you about the control, power wheel, and dominion over another person. But I do want to leave you with a couple of quick messages about what are we going to do about it. There's been a great start here. When your civic officials can make the commitment and make that something that they're going to stress, when your sheriff's department puts together a DV program where people are focused entirely on that, it goes a long way to helping do what we're supposed to do and what we're able to do. But I do think that there's something else, and there's always room for improvement. The more important question that I want to leave you with is, what are we going to do about it as we leave here tonight? In my opinion, what I see and what I would ask that you stress and look upon is ending the silence. Silence is the cause that allows domestic abuse, relationship violence to expand and grow in every community. And there's 4 types of silence I want to briefly talk about. One is the silence of victims. Victims become silent because they don't trust the system. Victims that are undergoing domestic abuse and physical violence and the threats of violence are suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder while they're there. They're developing coping mechanisms which allow them to survive. They are trying to take care and keep themselves alive and the lives of their children. The Irish Domestic Violence Center works to empower women and empower survivors, but we will always respect their decision. A woman that is leaving an abuser is 70 times more likely in danger at that time than she was before, because the abuser is losing power and control over that person. And when that rage explodes, you end up with somebody coming home into Ascension Parish and killing their parents after they've killed 3 people in Livingston Parish. It's a very sad commentary, but the silence comes when domestic abuse victims are afraid to speak out. And it's our job to create those spaces and opportunities where they begin to trust the police, where they begin to trust the people in their church, where they begin to trust the people in their community who may be reaching out to them. The other silence I want to talk about is silence by institutions and agencies, just like Iris. We have not done a good enough job of letting people know in the community that these services are available. 389-3001, that's the crisis line number in East Baton Rouge. You call that number, someone will answer that phone and will speak to you intelligently, quietly, non-judgmentally, confidentially, and answer questions that you may have about domestic abuse. You may not realize you're in an abusive situation. There is a question form that they can ask you to give you a lethality assessment, as Sheriff Weber was talking about, which is kind of a wake-up call to where you are. But we've got to do a better job of letting people know that those services are available to them. We've only been doing it for 38 years. It should be out there. And our commitment in the last year through our community outreach program is to get through that silence and to make sure that everybody knows, hey, there are people who care, there are services that are available, and through the use of one phone call, I might be able to find out what resources are available to assist me. The third is the silence by the community. This is somebody else's problem. For 40 years, people dealt with domestic abuse in that way. It was somebody else's problem. Dear, we're not going to get involved. That's a couple. They're going to go do, it's behind closed doors. Let them work it out. We're past that now. That's what led to a culture and a society that accepted domestic abuse, or else turned a blind eye towards it. When women go to the clergy and their minister tells them, you go back to the husband, he's wrong. If that husband is beating them up and physically abusing them, he's wrong. And it's time that people and ministers change that tune. And it's time that our community became the watchful eyes and ears to assist victims of domestic abuse. It is rare that they're going to reach out. But you, as part of our community outreach, can see something and say something. A woman that wears long sleeve clothing in the middle of the summer to cover up bruises on her arms or hand finger marks on her neck, somebody who's isolated herself, is no longer social or is even antisocial. Their affect is impacted. You can see the depression. All of those are warning signs. They're warning signs that say there may be something going on at home, something that's impacting them. I feel it's our right and almost our responsibility that if we see something like that, it's okay now to ask them, is everything okay? Is everything at home okay? Because that may be the one moment that you have to walk in and to make something happen, to bridge that gap and to kill that silence that keeps a barrier between victims and the services that they can receive, that can save their life. And I know that because I see it every day. If you work in a shelter, a domestic violence shelter, and you see the condition of individuals that come in there, and they look just like you and me, physically, except for their eyes, because their eyes show the trauma and the stress that they are undergoing. And they come in with a shirt on their back, a pair of sandals. They may not have even brought their handbag. There's certainly no documents. They could barely prove who they were if they had to, with kids in tow. And they're hungry, and they're tired, and they're scared, and they're on the run. And they're in danger. And that's the condition that they arrive. And they don't really want to trust us, and they may not even look like they know what's going on. And sometimes it takes weeks before they're able to process everything and to understand where they are. And do you know that it takes a woman about 7 times leaving an abuser before she can permanently leave? Because if we can't offer them an alternative, a place for her to live, a place for her to work, a way to make a living wage, to take her kids to child care, transportation to the doctor, then her choice becomes pretty simple. I'm either going back to the abuser, I'm going to live in the homeless on the street, because our homeless shelters are full. That's not really much of a choice. But the best we can do at this time is to provide those services and to keep encouraging and to provide them hope. I want to talk about the silence that comes from failed leadership and in our society. There's not a person here tonight, I bet, who wouldn't be the first to point out abusive behavior. If you saw the scars, the blood, the black eye, the busted lip, the broken limb on somebody who had been physically abused. But I want to talk about the more softer type of abuse and what we need to do from silence. We have a failure of leadership. I said that 85% of the abuse that we see is men against women. So yes, it's a woman's issue, but it's really a man's issue when you stop and think about it. Because men are the ones who are performing the most of this abusive behavior. And as a man, I need to see other men step up and call out bad behavior. If you're hanging around with individuals in your social group, your friends, your colleagues, who are degrading women, engaging in misogyny, treating them as second-class citizens, making jokes at their expense, you need to hang with a different group. Because every time that we don't call that kind of boorish behavior out, we normalize it and we accept it. And we end up with a culture and a society that would allow for women to be degraded in that way. And it would allow us to turn our back and to a deaf ear on comments or derogatory comments that are made by elected officials, even a president, pop stars in their songs, in their movies, in the TV shows that we watch. Professional athletes, where it seems to be a pastime for them. That is not acceptable behavior in our society in 2019. And men that fail to point that out, or who turn a blind eye to it because of the celebrity status of abusers who are doing that, or even because, well, I went to college with that guy and that's just the way he is. You need to point it out. Hey, I don't appreciate that kind of language. I don't appreciate that kind of commentary. I wish you wouldn't do it in front of me. Because every time we do, it becomes more normal and more acceptable. If we don't speak out against it, I want to remind you of the words of Martin Luther King, who in the 60s faced his own travails in leading the civil rights movement. And he said, in the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. So every time an opportunity comes for you to point out that type of behavior and let people know that you don't appreciate it and you fail to do so, that's the silence. That's the silence that allows that to continue. And here we are 40 years later, and I'm on the Women's Commission in Baton Rouge with Mayor Broome. And do you know what the number one problem was? Once again, providing shelter and sanctuary for women who were being abused. It says more about our social construct and our society than it does anything else. But the challenge is continuing, and I'm asking you to go forward with a pledge. Tonight, we talk about breaking the silence and ending the violence. And I do believe that silence is really one of the major components of domestic abuse that we have got to address. And everybody has to be involved. You have to be willing to take a stand. Because if you don't, at some point, with the rate these numbers are going, it's going to impact you, or your daughter, or your sister, or your mother, or someone that you know and love and care for. There is a way to stop it. It is predictable. It is preventable. It's a community health issue. It will take a community response. Be part of the Ascension Parish community that helps end domestic abuse and violence. Help Sheriff Weber and his team do the work that they need to do. Help our community crisis response team respond to domestic abuse. We're going to continue to provide the services. But let's look toward the preventive end on it. Let's get the information out to those who need it so that they know there is a different way. Help us in the silence and stop domestic violence. Thank you.
Thank you. Like I said, don't let the suit fool you. His heart is in helping the women at the center and the children. You can find him in the kitchen trying to provide food. You can find him on the rooftop if there's a leak in the roof. And he's just all over the place to make sure that the center is run correctly and that our ladies and our clients are getting the best service that they can get. The fatalities that he talked about over our parishes, we had 16. There were 8 females, 7 males, and 1 11-year-old. So at this time, through our Take Back the Night, we're going to do Remember Me, the lighting of the candles, East Ascension High School Interact Club. Will you come now?
We light the red candle for the women in our area who have been raped since October of last year. We light the next 5 candles in remembrance of the women, men, and children in our community who did not survive domestic violence and rape. The first white candle is in remembrance of the victims of domestic violence who died at the hand of their intimate partner during the last 12 months, and those who were murdered as a result of domestic violence.
The next white candle is in remembrance of the children in our state who were murdered as a result of domestic violence.
We light a blue candle for the teens who have been murdered by their intimate partners and for all of the other teens who are in abusive intimate relationships.
We light a yellow candle for all who were murdered by their girlfriend or boyfriend and the unknown number of men and women who were victims of same-sex violence or hate crimes.
We light the next white candle in remembrance of all the women who have been murdered and are missing, and their murders or disappearances are still unsolved.
We light a purple candle for all others who have been raped or battered.
At this time, let's just take a moment of silence just to pray for the family, the loved ones, and the children. Thank you, East Ascension High School. At this time, we will have community expressions by the Mayor of Gonzales, Barney Arcino, and then the Mayor of Sorrento, I couldn't see it, don't have my glasses, sorry, Michael Lambert.
I just want to say that Mayor Arsenault had another obligation to go to, so he had to express his regrets of not being able to stay. This is my fourth time to come speak to y'all. I spent a career in emergency services. I worked law enforcement and emergency medical care. I have seen the aftermath of domestic violence. I have several incidents that still stick in my head today. And I'm happy I'm retired now, but some of those incidents still stick in my mind. We have gone to a point in Sorrento that I had my clerks who answer the phones every day to understand if somebody calls asking for help with domestic violence, of where to call. They have that information available. When I spoke to my clerk today, they had handled about 5 calls this year in a year's period of time. So we do recognize there is a problem. We recognize that we can be part of a solution, and we're doing our best that we can. I just want to be brief, and I thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, we're going to recognize some of our special guests. Hearing Officer Pat Douglas, Southeast Legal Services, and George Hughes. And our CCRT members who meet monthly and help to plan and to give us statistics, to also help us to know what's going on in the community and provide us the information that we need to go back to our shelters and what we need to do to improve. Will our CCRT members please stand? Suzette Hamilton, Alicia Fuller, Josette Guillory, Pam Richardson, Amy Arlick, Allison Hutchison, Diane Hodges. Thank you. Now we're coming to a close. We will have a musical selection by Santa Monica High School Choir, Dutchtown High School Band. say to our young people, we really appreciate you all. Y'all did very, very well tonight. Thank you. Now, for our closing remarks, I just would be remiss if I didn't call her up because I just recently met her and we just kind of meshed because she's a young lady of excellence. She does everything and she's dedicated to it, and she just calls you and tells you what you're going to do and how it's going to be done. And I'm growing to love her. We will ask for some closing remarks by our board member of Iris and our CCRT, Allison Hutchison.
Thank you, Janice. I just want to echo what kind of everybody else said. We really appreciate you all for coming because you could have been somewhere else. This is so important to us, especially to me, as I've had some family members that have dealt with domestic violence, as I'm sure most of you in the audience have dealt with that as well. Thank you to our school system for you guys being here. The band was awesome, the choir, the Interact Club. We really appreciate it, and the ROTC. Thank you to all of our elected officials. I encourage you, if you still do not know anything about IRIS, please contact any one of us. Our CCRT, we meet once a month. If you are interested in joining us and to help us combat domestic violence in Ascension Parish, please reach out to any one of us. You can call the sheriff's office. You can call any one of us. You can stop us on the side, and we will be glad to help you to get to helping us. I want to say thank you to our executive director for IRIS, Mr. John Price. That was very great. Thank you so much.